And we're on the air. Hello, everyone. I apologize for the delay. And due to some network technical difficulties, Heather Lavoie, the COO of Geneia, will be unable to join us today. We decided to kick things off, unfortunately, without Heather, but I'm glad everyone could make it. And today we're going to be talking about the results of the Physician Misery Index that Geneia just announced this morning, specifically finding that physicians more and more are unsatisfied with their jobs, unhappy about the direction that medicine is heading. And, you know,
we're on the air. Hello,
sorry about that.
I apologize for the delay and due to some network technical.
Okay. You won't be hearing that echo again. Sorry about that. So let me kick things off. Just some opening remarks, starting with Dr. Vartabedian of Baylor College of Medicine. I know you've read the results of the report, and what do you think? Do you agree, disagree? Thoughts?
Well, you know, I think it's really not surprising what was found in the Geneia study, or the analysis rather. Things have really changed significantly over the past decade or so. I'm in a really unique perspective because I was raised as a what you might call an analog physician, and I've been watching the changes as medicine evolves into the digital space over the past several years. And with that evolution, I think the role of the physician has definitely evolved and changed. The technology has replaced a lot of what we used to do with our eyes and our ears and our hands. Big data and our what we do as physicians has been tracked and has been regulated, and a lot of control has been taken away, from us as physicians. And finally, the patient is now really empowered and can do a lot more on their own. And so, consequently, this role of the physician has really evolved and changed over time. Yet I think physicians don't see themselves as kind of moving with that flow. So this data is interesting, but it's really not surprising. It's what I see in my peers around me. But what I think is perhaps most important for physicians who read this, or for physicians who see this, is the fact that we really should feel a sense of empowerment given all the tools and resources we have before us as physicians in this generation. Right from the ability to share our opinion in public spaces, or even collect and communicate on platforms like Medstro, that right up to the ability to create our own apps and do the most remarkable things from our computer, just like I'm speaking into here. So we really should be feel empowered as physicians because of all these opportunities we have coming towards us. And so I think over this generation, it's incumbent upon physicians to sort of seize these opportunities and help redefine our profession, because I think it's going to be critical for us going forward. So while I'm discouraged by these, I think we should put a positive spin on this and see all that can come from it. And I think that's what's so nice about the Joy in Medicine campaign here, that it's putting a light on some of these things.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Vartabedian. Next, we'll go to Dr. Jennifer Zhou, the founder and CEO of Medstro, the social network for physicians. You, in particular, I know, experienced, throughout your training and in your early career, a lot of the frustrations that your generation is now coming to grips with. And as a result, that was the reason you actually started Medstro, to help physicians talk about and find ideas to overcome this. Could you give us your thoughts on the results of the survey?
Sure. So, Jim, thank you for having me, and Brian, great to be on this phone call with you. I knew that our paths would intersect again. But yes, Jim, you speak the truth. I finished my nephrology training 2 years ago, and my intent was to go into practice and have great, deep, meaningful relationships with my patients. I saw my parents do that. So my parents are both primary care physicians in Mississippi. And, I did 4 years of medical training, 3 years of internal medicine training, and then 2 years of renal fellowship, and I thought I was going to enter this fantastic experience, and it was very disappointing. I went through 4 jobs in 1 year, and that thank you to Geneia and Heather is probably the ultimate burnout if I could go through 4 jobs in 1 year. And so I'm really excited that Geneia is leading the way and really talking about physician misery index. And I agree and echo what Bryan says, that I don't think it's surprising for us. And an interesting point, the American College of Physicians is going to have their centennial in Boston this summer, and they were talking about having their own physician misery index, but Geneia went forward and got their physician misery index first, so maybe we can even talk about that at the centennial.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you for those opening remarks. I'd like to move next to ask both of you how you feel the practice of medicine has changed in the past 10 years. You know, I don't want, of course, to have you feel that you have to focus on the negative, but certainly if you could maybe give some examples of things that have changed, things that are different, and some things that have improved and some things that maybe need to be worked on. So we'll start with Dr. Vartabedian.
Yeah, no, to echo a little bit on what I said, I think perhaps the biggest change during this time period has been watching the evolution of the patient. Patients were once really kind of passive participants in the healthcare process, and through the evolution of the internet, patients have become truly empowered. And what's been so fascinating to watch is the fact that as patients have changed and evolved, physicians are now evolving in sequence. I was fortunate enough
They're dragging us along, aren't they, Bryan? It's great.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing. I think that I was around when the internet first came into being, and I remember
What did that please you?
when patients first started appearing in my office with these printouts from inkjet printers, and at the time, patients were really they're really kind of intoxicated with that power, and I've seen over time patients have developed this real relationship with information, but they actually know now, they've matured, and they know where I fit in with that and where the internet fits in with it. So it's been interesting to see that change and evolve. So that's been one of the most exciting changes. And I think it's great to see this empowerment by patients, but we need to embrace that as physicians rather than fight it, and I think we're fighting it less than we used to.
Excellent, excellent. And Dr. Joe, comments?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think patient empowerment is wonderful, and I definitely think this is a tipping point, I guess is the best way to say, for where physicians fit in with that. And I guess recapturing control over our lives and how the EHR and our understanding of medicine fits into that.
Yeah, one of the other things that I've seen kind of appearing is this this idea of time creep. As physicians, Wes Fisher, who is a cardiologist blogger in Chicago, has described this concept of time creep. And as physicians have become present on social networks, places like Twitter and Facebook, there's been kind of this expectation by patients that this is where we're supposed to be. So physicians now have this obligation not only to be accountable to patients in the offices, but also in the public realm, out on Twitter and Facebook and in public communities. I feel this is an obligation, but this has created a real challenge for us as physicians. It's one of those other stressors that we're now feeling, that we're now available almost 24/7 and accessible. And it's something that we have to train our next generation of physicians in terms of how to handle.
I totally agree with Bryan.
EHRs have been another issue as well. I think you were going to talk about that, Jim.
Yeah, why don't we? That's a good segue to talk about the EHR. It's a big complaint that we hear about physicians that they're spending too much time with their nose buried in the EHR on the computer typing. I know as a patient myself, when I see my primary care physician, they are spending up to 2/3 of the time typing it as I speak and not really looking at me. And then there's the 15-minute time limit, which we all feel, and it just seems very rushed. From a patient's perspective, I was wondering how it feels as a physician.
Ken, do you want me to start?
Sure, please, Dr. Vartabedian.
Yeah,
So Brian, you started on paper, right?
Yeah. Right. Man, you make me feel old. It's interesting. I just met my last intern last year, or actually the first intern at Texas Children's I met last year who had never seen a paper chart. It's amazing because it just shows us that we're now into this generation of electronic health records, which I see both sides of it. I work in a large group of pediatricians, the Texas Children's Practice Associates, and we all share the same EMR. And when I see one of their patients as a consult in my GI clinic, it's absolutely amazing to have access to all the information that they have. In the old days, we used to have to fax things. And I can contrast that with a freestanding private practice where I have to get those charged by fax. So there's some real benefits to having our information networked. I think that we're still working on 1970s, 1980s technologies with EMRs, and I think there's a long way to go. I think we're facing this fact that the whole industry is sort of dominated by a couple of key players, which have done a great job, but I'm not sure that innovation is really where they're at. So I think we have a long way to go, and there are some small players in the EHR space who are doing some amazing things who really can't get a leg up. So a lot of challenges.
So I would definitely echo that, Brian and Jim. And I was wondering maybe if we should take the opportunity to talk more about the survey that Geneia is reporting on, this Physician Misery Index, and maybe we could go through the highlights of what that survey found. So I'm very impressed that someone has taken the initiative and done this fantastic, even-handed survey of 400 physicians across the U.S., and they have a nice distribution through the U.S. Brian, you're in Houston, so they have a great distribution from the South. I'm in Boston right now. They have a great distribution in the Northeast, and I feel like it represents most of the nation. I think it was fascinating that they found that 2/3, or 67%, of doctors surveyed know another doctor who is likely to stop practicing medicine in the next 5 years as a result of physician burnout. And the survey found that that was true for younger and more experienced doctors. And so, Brian, your experience is different from mine. You're in Houston, Texas, and you're in the world's largest medical center. I'm in Boston. I'm from Mississippi. Boston has an overabundance of doctors, and I just hear every day, especially from younger physicians, that they're tired, that they're at their breaking point, and they don't have control over things. And I was wondering if, Brian, if you heard the same thing, that burnout's a real problem.
Yeah, burnout's a huge issue. And I think, some of this stems back to this sense of satisfaction that we're feeling on a day-to-day basis with our work. So much of what a physician once did, or what we did even 20 years ago, or had control over 20 years ago, has really been taken away from us. And so that sense of satisfaction that we can do things on our own really is missing. If you take proton pump inhibitors, for example, just the simple idea of prescribing a proton pump inhibitor, the decision about which medication is used is completely out of my hands. For example, placing a sick child with IBD on Remicade, the amount of work that I have to go through just to do that is really staggering. So it is interesting that we're seeing this even in younger aged doctors as well as older age doctors. With the older docs, I can easily attribute that to the adaptation process that they're having to go through with this new system. The younger doctors, I'm not so sure, because they're really so new into this. Perhaps their expectations are different, I'm not sure, but we do see it for sure.
Yeah, I think in the Boston side, we like to think of ourselves as the millennial idealistic generation, and I wonder if we come out really expecting to change people's lives. And I definitely think my parents' generation, like they had this fantastic relationship with doctors. They were a central part of their lives. Like my dad, people recognize him in the grocery store,
Yeah.
and he would, they'd be like, Dr. Joe, thank you so much. And I'd never seen these people before. My dad would sit there and blush. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think I expected a relationship, right? Maybe they wouldn't track me down in the grocery store and like profess their love for me like my dad, but I would have a relationship, and I think that was our expectation. So it's interesting that the survey, I think, reflects that. And the survey also found that a majority of physicians would consider a career option outside of clinical practice. They found that 51% would consider a career option outside of clinical practice. And I think I've definitely seen that, and I'm an example of someone who's had no experience in entrepreneurship or running a company or technology at all, or what Twitter was. And Brian, you've been on social media for 10 years? 5 years? I don't know. Yeah. So I just made the complete switch over. And I think you have seen people who are really interested in other careers because of burnout. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, you know, I think in medicine we do a poor job of helping young trainees understand the options that are available to them after training. I trained at a large children's hospital, a lot like the hospitals you have in Boston, Jennifer. And as you know, you're really given two options. You can go and work in a lab, or you can be a clinician. But it's great to see. I know in the Boston community there are centers of innovation at the Brigham and Women's and other places that are trying to cultivate people in this, or cultivate young physicians in developing other areas and innovation and what have you. So I think we do a poor job of helping our doctors understand that there's a life outside of just clinical medicine or bench research. And it takes a lot of courage, I know, as an individual to go out and do something different. Just the simple idea of starting a blog 10 years ago for me was, it was frightening, because I wasn't sure how I was going to be received or what people would think about me. It's those expectations, right?
Well, it's particularly scary because as physicians, I think we're counseled to always watch what we say. So I definitely think that that's reflected, and I'm not surprised the survey found that. Another really interesting finding, and I think, Brian, you're probably an example of this right now as you're in your scrubs and you're at the hospital and you have more sticky notes behind you than I've seen in a long time, was that 78% of doctors feel that they're rushed when seeing patients. And to me, what that says is, where are those 20% who don't feel rushed, right? When's the last time So Brian, maybe you rushed over here, I believe.
Yeah, we're definitely pressured. As margins just seem to be shrinking for the average practicing physician, it seems that the only way we can really keep up, and again, I'm a physician employee, so it's a slightly different situation, but the only way that the general pediatrician, for example, can keep up is by seeing more and more patients, and as you push more and more into a limited amount of time, your satisfaction drops, your burnout increases, and of course mistakes happen as well. It has fallout, of course, on the patient side as well. What the patients experience and feel is so paramount, and that comes as a problem here too. So no doubt that we're seeing more and more. We're being pressured more. You know, administrative responsibilities are big too. It seems like every week I'm having to take some other quiz or assessment to maintain my credentials with the institutions I'm affiliated with, and so that takes time away from things as well.
Absolutely. And I think that just segues into the Joy of Medicine survey finding that 87% said that the business and the regulation of healthcare has changed the practice of medicine for the worst. And I definitely think you've said that, and I've seen that. I mean, for how many forms do randomly appear on your desk, Brian? They just appear, right? And there's like 20, 30 a day.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's and you know, in the institutions that sort of around us has sort of forced the physicians to take these quizzes and fraud courses and everything else. I mean, they're really under pressure too from regulatory bodies to put the pinch on us to sort of do all these things as well. So it's kind of it's part of a broader problem. And I think too, physicians really haven't. I'm not sure that we've done the best job advocating for ourselves as well.
I echo that. Yeah.
In the state of Texas, the chiropractors are far more organized than the physicians are with respect to connections with the legislature and everything else. And so I think we've failed on a certain level to sort of look after ourselves and to keep our profession tidy in that respect.
So I completely echo that. I think we're trained and we're expected to persevere because we persevered through so much. And now we've just let the business of medicine take us over. We've let the EHRs take us over. We click through an EHR that's hard to navigate, hard to find information. You're getting carpal tunnel. You're not making eye contact. And then you have forms. They're forms from everywhere. They're insurance forms. They're MRI forms. They're not consistent. You can't figure out where you need to sign. You don't know why they're there, and they just appear on your desk.
But there is hope. There is hope. And that's kind of what our challenge is all about, right?
Yes, yes. So I'm excited that Geneia is focusing on putting physicians back at the center and really pushing us to say, how can we work together and how can we create change? And maybe, Jim, you can tell us more about the Joy of Medicine Challenge that Geneia has created.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So in addition to the survey results that were released from the Physician Misery Index, Geneia this morning also announced that they're launching an online idea competition that will be hosted on the Medstro site. And really the idea is to get physicians to submit ideas to restore the joy to medicine. So, I think the survey certainly showed that a lot of the joy of medicine is starting to get, watered down. There's a lot more frustration than joy. But Geneia didn't want to stop with just pointing out the problem. Geneia felt that this is an opportunity to actually hear directly from physicians what they want to do. So they've established 3 prizes as part of the Joy of Medicine Challenge.
And they're cash prizes, right? So we can take this cash and go to Hawaii, and that restores our joy.
They are cash prizes. That is correct.
Would that restore your joy, Brian?
So yeah, it's the first prize actually it segues really well with what you were discussing before. It's the EHR of the Future prize. And it's basically saying to physicians, you all hate the EHR, or maybe you don't all hate the EHR, but there's certainly very few physicians who have nothing negative to say about the EHR. We can put it that way.
Brian, how many physicians do you know love the EHR?
Oh, my IT friends are the only ones. And
yeah. So this is sort of this first prize here is like, okay, you have a magic wand, you're going to wave it, and you're going to turn the EHR into the perfect, or make it more perfect. Make the EHR something that really enables you to spend more time with your patients, or go home a little earlier every day. And what would you do?
And not miss Ebola.
Yes. And this could be anything. It could have to do with linking in other sources of information, like information from wearables, or these 24/7 monitors that are being sold. A lot of people out there are monitoring their heart rate, their blood pressure, and these monitors are getting more and more sophisticated. Do we pull that into the EHR? And just within the EHR itself, the ability for the EHR to work better with your workflow, so you don't have to do as much clicking and pointing and changing. And also maybe EHRs could help present information that will help you make a better diagnosis. So any of those things. That's the EHR of the Future prize.
Jim has described our perfect EHR, right, Brian?
Already done. Let me make a
And
comment.
so that prize winner will receive $1,000 and will be invited to pitch their idea at a live event, which will be scheduled sometime in June or July. We have not have a final schedule on that. And the other two prizes I will just talk about here. The second prize, and when I say first, second, and third, these are not in order. They're just three different prizes.
There's a population health prize, which I think is particularly fascinating, though confusing to people, Brian. Like what is population health? And Brian, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I see this as an overlay in the EHR that allows you to quickly, if you're taking care of a panel of 2,000 patients, what's a normal panel? 3,000 patients?
Yeah.
There's no way for us to just quickly scan who are our smokers, and can I send an email or a telephone call to reach out to them and say, maybe we should consider stop smoking. So,
like a good example is our kids with inflammatory bowel disease. We're starting to collectively look at them as a population and review them so that we're looking at things sort of from a clinic population perspective as opposed to just as individuals who come in on a daily basis. So kids on 6-mercaptopurine, for example, we'll run through and see to it that their levels have all been done and that sort of thing.
and surprisingly, we haven't had that capability before. We just had to comb through by hand, and we all know how painful that is.
Yeah.
And then the third one, Jim, is the Joy of Medicine Prize.
Correct. So the Joy of Medicine Prize is intended to be sort of a, just get creative. How would you restore joy to your practice? And it could be really anything. We want people to feel like they're unconstrained and can submit any ideas. And one of the important things to consider with this prize is to make sure you explain in your prize submission what is your definition of the joy of medicine, because I'm sure that's different for every physician.
Can I submit a spa day once a week for my entire practice?
You can get the insurance companies to pay for it.
Well, maybe if it raised my overall productivity, right, Brian?
Exactly. And I guess as a judge, I guess I can't submit, right? I'm out of this, right?
That's correct. The judges won't be able to submit their own ideas.
No spa days for you, Brian.
Well, let me just say, I think this is a fantastic idea and a fantastic initiative that you guys, that Geneia and Medstro have really initiated here. The survey spawned some stuff that's fairly discouraging. But again, I think as I opened up with, I think we have to look at the bright side, look at all the things that we can do to help reshape our profession as physicians. I mentioned that we've kind of been watching from the sidelines, and I think it's time that we sort of became active participants in shaping the future of our profession. I think we really should embrace that and see the power and strength that comes with that.
Absolutely.
And while we're on the subject of the Joy of Medicine Prize, could I ask both of you to just quickly describe what you define as the joy of medicine for yourself? And we'll start with Dr. Vartabedian.
Oh, my goodness, you caught me. What I define as a joy of medicine, I guess it's the connection I have with patients. Over the past few years, have become more involved in medical education and medical education surrounding technology here at Baylor College of Medicine. I've pulled some of my clinical time back. Yet I still find myself drawn to the relationships that I make with some of these parents that I see. And as brutally hard as clinical medicine is, the rewards that come with that on a day-to-day basis, I think, are powerful for me. And I think that even if I were in a more advanced position or had a business like Jennifer had, for example, I'm not sure that I would even pull back completely from clinical medicine, because I really love that connection. So that's really where the joy comes. And I think that'll always be there, independent of what the government or administration does with regard to our workflow.
Great. And Dr. Joe?
Yeah, so I agree. I love the relationship with the physicians, with the patients. And I think my joy of medicine will be in creating change and allowing physicians to empower themselves, to empower ourselves, but see ourselves as the best advocates for patients, patient care, patient delivery. and making the right changes that we need as a country, whether that's the right innovations to move forward, whether that's a systems change, which I think the system is definitely changing, whether that's the right policy, whether that's how we have health insurance for people, to see ourselves as the biggest advocate for moving American healthcare in the right direction, so that I can go back to work, maybe not 80 hours like I was doing before, but maybe 40 to 60 hours, and say, this is a good day and I don't feel burned out.
Excellent. Okay, well, that actually brings us exactly to 30 minutes, and that's all the time we have for today. I want to first thank Dr. Vartabedian and Dr. Joe for your time and for sharing your insights with us. And second, I want to make sure that everyone out there who is interested in submitting their ideas to the Joy of Medicine Challenge, I've actually just now, if you look on the screen, I've changed right underneath my name. You can see the URL that you need to submit. So that's https://medstro.com/groups/joy. And we will put this link as a comment to this YouTube event, so you can come back to it and see it anytime you want. If for some reason you are unable to find that, you can just go to geneia.com or medstro.com and you'll find links on our home pages to the competition. Finally, I did want to mention, in addition to those 3 prizes we talked about, the EHR, the Future, Population Medicine, and Joy of Medicine, there will be a grand prize which will be decided basically by what we call a pitch-off of the winners of those 3 prizes. So you'll be invited to pitch in front of a live audience and a live panel of judges who will decide the first prize, who will, in addition to their the $1,000 prize that they get for their individual prizes, they will get $5,000 worth of consulting services from Geneia to help them turn their idea into a reality. It's a great opportunity, a fantastic opportunity to win some money, get some help making your idea a reality, and just share ideas with each other about how we can improve medicine. So in closing, once more, thanks Dr. Vartabedian, Dr. Joe, and if anyone has any questions, the comments section of this YouTube video will be open. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Jim.